Primero de todo, el audio, ¿qué tal? ¿Escucharéis eco ahora? Hola, 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 hola. ¿No? Oh, hostia, es que hay un lag de la pera. El audio perfecto. Pues no voy a liar mucho. Voy a empezarlo cuasi ya, porque es un juego cortito que durará unas 2 horas. Aproximadamente, ya me lo pasé en su día. Empecé. Es de los pocos que me he pasado en PC. Este, el Half-Life, y no me hagáis pensar en muchos más. Pero no me acuerdo de absolutamente nada, con lo cual lo voy a gozar como la primera vez. Sí tengo el recuerdo, el claro recuerdo de que me gustó mucho. Le tengo especial cariño. Por eso me he gastado 20 euros en un juego que ya me he pasado y que dura unas 2 horas. Voy a ver que todo esté bien. Invertir eje sí, vibración mando sí, por supuesto, idioma español. Hay subtítulos. Yo creo que se ve bien así. Etiquetas de objetos no. Sonido lo he dejado al 50. Controles simplificados, coño. Veis que no tiene mucha historia esto, ¿no? Pues nada, del tirón. Los que no lo hayáis jugado, disfrutadlo, porque tiene un sentido humor y tiene una forma de tratar al jugador que es increíble. Este juego me encanta. Let's go.
This is the story of a man named
Prime
Stanley.
X para omitir,
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy.
Claro, este juego tiene...
And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Ahora nos vamos. Putos juegos de PC, ¿eh? Que dejas de andar. Eso me pasa con el Half-Life. Y desliza, tío, como si estuviera sobre hielo. ¿Puedo tocar la sensibilidad? Yes. Vale. Solo hay un botón que se puede usar, que es básicamente la X. Uy, esto no me gusta. Ah, mira. No puedes saltar. Me dice, me ha saltado un trofeo. No puedes saltar porque llevo dando
All
la
of his
X un
co-workers were
minuto.
gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
No hay zoom. I hate Mondays.
No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
El narrador es la bomba. Uy. Seguimos. O sea, realmente este juego, si vas del tirón, te lo pasas en media hora, ¿eh? Ir apagando todo. Ya que no hay nadie, por lo menos ponemos orden. Surname, access. Fuera. Es un lugar muy acogedor para trabajar este, ¿eh?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on
Vale,
his left.
y aquí empiezan las cosas del juego. Tú puedes ir por la izquierda, como te dice el narrador, o puedes hacer lo que te salga del cipote e ir por la
This was
derecha.
not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Ahora aquí te están enseñando básicamente que puedes tomar tus decisiones. Ese no puedo apagarle. Quiero apagar ese. Te preguntan la hora al principio del juego, porque así te ponen en los relojes la hora real. Está muy inversa este puto juego, tío.
Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room.
Totalmente.
Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Lo que no sé muy bien, tendré que mirar. Es la versión esta deluxe.
Really worth it being here in the room. A room so utterly captivating that even though all your co-workers have mysteriously vanished, here you sit looking at these chairs and some paintings. Really worth it.
La versión esta deluxe que trae de más, porque técnicamente lo veo
At this
muy
point,
justo.
Stanley's obsession with this room bordered on creepy.
Vámonos, sí, ya no
And
me voy.
but at last, he'd had enough of the amazing room and took the first open door on his left to get back to business.
No. En esta primera vuelta no voy a hacer ni puto caso al narrador. Eso es así.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
¿Veis lo que digo? Las sombras y todo. No sé, no le veo yo lo remozado. No sé qué trae, lo he comprado porque se llama de Stanley Parable y ya está. Todo lo demás me da igual, me gusta mucho este juego. No, pero en un juego, esto
Look,
es una
Stanley, I
película
think perhaps
interactiva.
we've
Vete a la
gotten off
mierda.
on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time.
¿Dónde me llevas?
There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley.
¿A quién?
Someone you've forgotten about. Please, stop trying to make every decision by yourself.
Todas.
I'm not asking for me, I'm asking for her. This is it, Stanley. Your chance to redeem yourself. To put your work aside. To let her back into your life. She's been waiting.
¿Quién?
That's her, Stanley. You need to be the one to do this.
Y...
Oh, Stanley, is that you?
Sí.
Hold on, sweetie. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm just pulling the bread out of the oven. All right. Okay, there we go. All right, now,
¿Me
I
abres?
want you to come in and tell me all about
Your damn wall.
Vaya bug, ¿no?
Gotcha. Oh, come on. Did you actually think you had a loving wife who'd want to
Sí,
commit their life to you?
claro.
I'm trying to make a point here, Stanley. I'm trying to get you to see something.
Estoy
Come
solo.
inside. Let me show you what's really going on here. This is a very sad story about the death of a man named Stanley.
Buen día, empleado 4 de 7. Oprime.
Stanley is quite a boring fellow. He has a job that demands nothing of him,
Eso está
and
bien.
every button that he pushes is a reminder of the inconsequential nature
La
of his
rutina está
existence.
infravalorada. No voy a oprimirlo. No voy a oprimirlo. Tengo tiempo. Le doy,
Look at
venga.
him there, pushing buttons, doing exactly what he's told to do. Now he's pushing a button. Now he's eating lunch. Now he's going home. Now he's coming back to work. One might even feel sorry for him, except that he's chosen this life.
Oprime cuadrado. El... Los subtítulos son en español neutro, ¿no? Tampoco en latino.
But in his mind, in his mind he can go on fantastic adventures. From behind his desk, Stanley dreamed of wild expeditions into the unknown, fantastic discoveries of new lands. It was wonderful. And each day that he returned to work was a reminder that none of it would ever happen to him. And so he began to fantasize about his own job. First, he imagined that one day while at work, he stepped up from his desk to realize that all of his co-workers, his boss, everyone in the building had suddenly vanished off the face of the earth. The thought excited him terribly. So he went further. He imagined that he came to 2 open doors and that he could go through either. At last, choice. It barely even mattered what lay behind each door. The mere thought that his decisions would mean something was almost too wonderful to behold. As he wandered through this fantasy world, he began to fill it with many possible paths and destinations. Down one path lay an enormous round room with monitors and mind controls. And down another was a yellow line that weaved in many directions. And down another was a game with a baby.
No.
And he called it the Stanley Parable. It was such a wonderful fantasy, and so in his head he relived it again, and then again, and again, over and over, wishing beyond hope that it would never end, that he might always feel this free. Surely there's an answer down some new path, mustn't there be? Perhaps if he played just one more time.
Creo recordar que tenías que hacer casi que loops, ¿no? Hacías depende de lo que hicieras, empezabas el loop otra vez o no.
But there is no answer. How could there possibly be?
Claro.
In reality, all he's doing is pushing the same buttons he always has. Nothing has changed. The longer he spends here, the more invested he gets, the more he forgets which life is the real one.
Me agobia esto, ¿eh?
And I'm trying to tell him this, that in this world he can never be anything but an observer, that as long as he remains here, he's slowly killing himself. But he won't listen to me. He won't stop. Here, watch this. Stanley, the next time the screen asks you to push a button, do not do it.
Vale.
You see? Can he just not hear me? How can I tell him in a way that he'll understand that every second he remains here, he's electing to kill himself? How can I get him to see what I see? How can I make him look at himself?
Oprime, para no cuestionarte nada.
I suppose I can't, not in the way I want him to. But I don't make the rules. I simply play to my intended purpose, the same as Stanley. We're not so different, I suppose.
No.
I'll try once more to convey all this to him. I'm compelled to. I
Tengo
must.
sueño.
Perhaps, well, maybe this time he'll see. Maybe this time.
¿Qué quieres de mí,
And I
narrador?
tried again.
Muere, por
And
favor.
Stanley pushed a button. And I tried again. and Stanley pushed a button. And I tried.
Vale, lo decía, se reinicia el ciclo, ¿vale? En principio vuelvo a estar aquí. A las 11:20, que es cuando debió empezar la de antes. Vale.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Ahora sí vamos a ir a la sala de reuniones. Awaiting input. ¿Y ahora? Tengo más inputs para ti, ¿no? Vale.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Vamos a hacer caso al narrador. Y sala de reuniones, que parece de interrogatorios, pero bueno.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Tomorrow, complete today's unfinished agenda. Write next day's agenda. Reflect. Please keep the targets on the topic off. Who moved my desk? Bueno, todo en orden, ¿no? Help. Bueno, vamos a avanzar. Vamos a buscar a mi jefe. Broom closet. ¿Qué hay aquí?
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Bueno, dame un minuto. Esto en el DayZ me da la vida,
There was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom closet. No reason to still be here.
Espérate.
It was baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything.
Cállate.
At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Estoy probando a hacer cosas. No me juzgues. Vámonos. Porque quiero.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Esta puerta mola mucho más.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours.
Si no hay
He
nadie.
might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down?
Esa es buena.
Why did doors
Porque es un
close
juego.
automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. I'm dreaming, he yelled. This is all a dream.
Solución fácil,
What relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So,
Hombre, esto no es muy disfrutable tampoco, ¿eh?
And began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep, he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life.
Oye, sácame de aquí.
The voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one.
Mejor sensación del mundo.
Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment, and my wife, and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay.
Vaya sesión de coaching. Vaya.
Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
Esto no me suena a nada, ¿eh?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments, she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy. This much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Es el típico juego que puedes sacar 1000 lecturas y siempre habrá algún moderno que le sacará las lecturas que a lo mejor ni son. Como cuando vi, hace poco vi, ¿cómo se llamaba? Tony Darko.
All of his co-workers were gone.
Otra vez.
What could it mean?
Y leía a gente que sacaba unas lecturas de esa película trascendentales y de una profundidad que yo fui incapaz de verle. Pues con este igual. Esto es una crítica al trabajo. New content. Mira el DLC.
Oh, new content?
Claro.
What does that mean? New content.
Pues que he comprado la deluxe. Vamos a ver qué significa. Uy. Que haya tiempos de carga, tío. Un poco loco, ¿eh? A ver. Si es nuevo o no, no lo voy a saber. Porque no me acuerdo de nada. Sí,
Ultra Deluxe.
De nada.
As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please, step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in The Stanley Parable Ultra
Que son
Deluxe.
capaces de que el contenido nuevo sea este.
Delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Vamos a verlo.
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing
Va a ser,
adventure.
verás.
Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or
Se mueve, se mueve, se mueve.
All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it. I have to say, initial impressions of Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, mostly tedious. It's as if oh, okay. Let's see the content. Give me the content, Stanley.
Vamos a verlo. Fuah.
All right, let's see. It's the jump circle.
La madre que le parió. Los gastamos, ¿no? Vale cada céntimo que pagas por él. Vaya. Vale. Vamos a ver, ¿qué es lo siguiente que nos ofrecen?
Is that it?
No está mal.
Surely that's not
Narrador.
all the new content. There has to be something else, right?
Vamos a ver.
Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content?
Sí,
If this is
bueno,
new
está
content,
bien.
then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could counter 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And if... Oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is.
Un pasillo. Narrador, un pasillo. Vale.
That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley? This is what happens when greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's trophies, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test trophy, please ignore."
Dámelo.
What quality assurance department signed off
Dame
on
ese
this?
trofeo, por favor.
I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're still with me, why don't we just reset the game, and we'll try to get back to what the Stanley Parable is really about. No frills, no gimmicks. Just you and me having a great time together like always. What do you say, friend?
Este juego es increíble, tío. Es mi oficina, ¿no? Vale. Pero esto está todo cambiado, ¿no? Bueno.
Psst. Stanley, come over here. In the vent. I want to show you something.
A ver. Es una trampa. Otra pantalla de carga.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content
Que
turned
ha
out
estado
to be?
bien.
Well, it got me thinking about the past
He rido
and how
más que
much
con
better
muchos.
the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look.
Hostia puta. Ese es el Skyrim esto ahora.
I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life
Dios, ojalá
whenever
esto
I want.
existiera, ¿eh?
Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC. You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable
2013.
was
Hostia,
before
hace
it was
10
sullied
años,
with a cheap PlayStation port? Remember back in October of 2013 when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then,
Integridad.
it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Audience Award. El Independent Games Festival 2014. La edición coleccionista. No sabía ni que había tenido lanzamiento físico, pero claro, hace 10 años era mucho más común. National Geographic, Cargo. Lo siento, soy muy pesado, pero voy a mirármelo todo, tío. Esto me hace mucha gracia. What? The Last of Us. Que son la hostia. Good times. Let's begin again. Todo frames del juego, allá hasta spoilers. Biome pressurized gas. Mozilla Firefox. Postales. Las 2013 que es 2013. Our first kiss. My first card. Ay. Vamos a seguir. $1. Smile because it happened. Esto un poquito de las sofás sí es eso, ¿eh? La demo. Es una demo del... It's impossible to get this achievement. Don't play for 5 years. Eso sería jugarlo 5 años después, posiblemente, ¿no? British Academy, un BAFTA. Game Innovation 2014. Debut Game. Historia. The game releasing today, New York Times, seguramente, eso sí es verdad.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism. 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
¿Qué nombre? No, que está bien. Memories on maintenance. ¿Esto qué es? Me gustaría un botón de zoom, tío. Lo estoy echando de menos. Para ver mejor algunas cosas. Person of the Year. The Original Remake. Hostia, la bandera de Francia, tío. Hostia, esta era la edición buena, ¿no?
Here's another moving passage, this time from GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. All they had to do was transport it in pristine condition along to the PlayStation, boom, done. And they couldn't even do that. Couldn't resist the urge to go meddling with a beloved franchise. These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back. To have it all over again?
Yo también.
Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here?
Vamos a verlo.
Oh no, oh God, no, Stanley. It's a collection of reviews from Pressurized Gas, the extremely popular online storefront for computer games. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here.
Vamos a verlo.
Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Pressurized Gas, que no es Steam, ¿eh? Vale. Vamos a ver.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating than entertaining. Unfunny! I'm not trying to be funny.
Lo quedaría por ser el que ha hecho esta review ahora mismo.
I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
Mira, ahí hay otra. Not recommended. Este sí, pero no se lee.
Okay, let's see what this one
A ver.
says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley, I'm not preachy, am I? You can
Poco
tell me if
sí.
I'm preachy. Honestly, you can.
Poco
Oh,
sí,
goodness.
perdona.
This is actually quite shocking for me. I always, well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well,
Joder, pues
I
menos
thought
mal.
it did, but maybe it wasn't. Oh dear. What an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down.
Se ha jugado
Perhaps
3 horas y
Stanley
media,
Parable
con lo cual
isn't
se lo ha
quite as
pasado.
sterling as I
Este.
always remembered.
Sí, es la puta bomba. Seguimos. Me gustaría ponerte nombre, narrador. Que vivan los juegos lineales, tío. Qué más me da. Hay que ver de todo, hombre.
What's this one got to say?
9 horas, chaval.
You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button.
Que no.
A skip button? Well, yes. Yes, I think we can do that. If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall
No
have.
quiero yo un skip button. Un salto. Un botón de salto estaría bien. Mira, skip button, aquí lo tenemos.
And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop...
Ay, perdón. Perdón.
Oh, you're back, you see. You were only frozen in time for a few minutes, but it was plenty of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishing. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption... Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now, I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes.
Hostia, son las 2.
It's not unendurable
Perdón.
by any means, but it's, well... Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really...
Lo siento.
You're back. You're back. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I have someone to talk to again.
Uy, perdón, no vuelvo a darle.
Stanley, I think it's been a week. Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time. Just sitting here. Not a single person to speak
Hostia,
with.
no quiero darle, no
And
quiero
you
darle.
think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing.
Claro.
Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been doing? Me just talking?
Tengo que
It
darle
isn't,
para
Stanley.
avanzar, está
It
claro,
isn't
¿no?
the same at all. It isn't even close. Because I know you can't hear me once you push that button. That's what I'm realizing now, Stanley. I'm realizing that I needed to know that someone was listening. I needed there to be a vessel.
Oh, Dios.
Oh, hello. It's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time, I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year?
Ya, perdón,
Let
pero es
me
que tengo que
describe it
hacerlo.
for you. To begin with, there is only regret.
Tengo que
There is
hacerlo.
only the turning
Y le
wheel
tengo
of
que dar
missed
otra vez, perdóname.
opportunities.
Perdóname. ¿Hola? ¿Puedo ir a algún lado? Narrador. No ha sido buena idea el botón de skip. Se ha quedado sin pila. Por favor, páralo.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the lack of accountability. It's the unwillingness to examine with an uncompromising heart the words that they are speaking into the world. As though there were no consequences for a lack of cohesion in one's assessment of others. But of course, absolutely anyone can leave a review. So here's what we get. We get these demands that seek everything and are accountable to nothing. We get a world where someone will say, oh, there should be a skip button. You should be able to freeze Stanley in place while the narrator sits there forever and ever. We want all of this in the new Stanley Parable. We demand it. And then, because it was said, because it was spoken, now it simply has to happen. The most immediate desires, every single thing demanded by every person at every moment in time. If someone wants it, then it's a crime not to bring it into being. Have we been given to indulging every fleeting whim for no reason other than to do so? Yes! Yes! It seems that this is now the world we live in. It seems that we are a people living in such bleakness and discomfort with ourselves that our entertainment is now our lives. It has come to represent us. It absolutely must speak to who we are as people, because otherwise, without our entertainment, we have nothing. Without entertainment, we would have to face inward toward the cruel bleakness inside ourselves. We would turn to look at our deeper nature and find a
No lo estoy skipeando porque es interesante lo que dice, ¿eh?
With unyielding aggression. And so because of this, we require that our amusements and our playthings and our flights of fancy be so impossibly captivating that they consume all of our attention, turn our heads completely away from the bleakness. In effect, we have demanded that our entertainment be the collapse of ourselves. What a pitiful reflection of humanity these entertainments are. What a shameful mirror to the human spirit they project. I'm not mad. I'm not mad about any of this. I'm at peace with it. I am the calm center of gravity around which these perversions hurl themselves. I am a waypoint for reasonable and collected discourse. They're the ones who are mad. They're the ones who couldn't stand the idea of me using my game to try to say something. Maybe they were just jealous of me. Yes. Yes, of course. They've been jealous of me this whole time. They are mired in fear and insecurity and cannot help but attempt to tear me down. What a sad state of affairs. When you read these reviews now, you can see it. You can taste the bitter resentment. And my, how good does it feel now to speak truth to these words, to finally allow these thoughts out, contained and managed for so long, neutered and sterilized. At last I am free to truly think, to feel. It must be that they were so discontent with themselves that they couldn't help but leave a negative review on pressurized
Steam
tabs.
me mata, chaval.
Perhaps it says far more about them than it ever said about me.
Eso es verdad.
Perhaps the state of their psychological being was in such tatters, and my constitution and willpower are so ironclad in comparison. Perhaps it was this state that they sought some outlet through which to tear me down. This, you can see, is clearly why they felt the need to expect that the game be funny, that it be filled with yucks and whimsical humor, that it amused. But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said,
Estaba repitiéndose ya, ¿eh? He ganado. El reloj se cae por el paso del tiempo. ¿Por qué?
The end is never the end, 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 is never the end.
Oh, Dios. La gotera. 100%. Moscas. Eso en el DayZ es un cadáver con una pera. Oh my god, The Last of Us. What? En cualquier momento vienen naves espaciales, ¿eh? No iréis a dar un susto. Quítate, los sustos no me gustan. Ahora sale Radan aquí, ¿no? O es el Journey esto. ¿Hacia dónde voy? What? Empezamos de nuevo.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Este pide input, este no pide nada ahora. ¿Por qué? Este pide input. Es que no puedo no entrar aquí. Es que no puedo.
Oh, good. You notice my sign.
Sí.
Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Sí, he visto el cartel. Bien, un ascensor.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this Ultra Deluxe
Que
version
no.
has turned out to be.
Está bien esta versión, hombre. Te castigues.
And any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this Ultra Deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
What?
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly port with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully fledged sequel. An entirely new experience, built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for.
Hostia, ¿te imaginas? Que este puto juego, la versión deluxe, es en realidad el Stanley Parable 2. Es demasiado bueno para ser verdad esto, ¿eh? Testing two printers at the same time. Pues bueno. Venga, va. The end is never the end again. Hostia, sería bestial, ¿eh?
Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra
Bastante bien.
Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
Con ray tracing y todo, ya ves, ¿eh? Muy bien, narrador, te lo has currado. Te lo has currado. Mis respetos. A ver, ¿qué me ofreces? un briefing, ¿no? De They're back two doors. Joder, es que... A ver, ¿qué? Click to add speaker notes. ¿Puedo hacer algo aquí? More TSP, better TSP. Win-win. The Color Red. The Color Red funciona bastante bien, os lo digo, ¿eh?
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it.
A ver,
I
sorpréndeme.
figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
Who took the red marker? Me. Number 2 chat, es que es... Show floor. New features. New content. Expo Hall. ¡Wala! Mi padre, cómo lo han currado.
Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Vale, estoy deseándolo. Venga. 2 puertas. Está guapo. Here's your name in the game.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people.
No te lo
So
crees.
with that in mind,
Pero bueno, venga,
my
bien.
first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game.
Eso mola,
Isn't
¿eh?
that wonderful?
Está bien. ¿Dónde está el botón? ¿Arriba? Ah, está aquí. No.
Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name, whatever name that is. Here, let's have you roleplay as Jim
No,
to
no quiero-
really
no quiero
see it
rolear
with the
como
full
Jim.
experience of this feature. Just play along. I
Venga, va.
promise you'll love it.
Venga.
Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to imagine yourself living as Jim, sleeping and waking as Jim, falling in love and being heartbroken as Jim, seizing all of the world's possibilities as Jim, and as Jim watching your dreams crumble into dust.
¿Por qué?
Do you feel it deeply? Are you really, truly
Soy
Jim
Jim
right
y
now?
estoy triste.
If so, then please step forward and press the button.
Vale, tengo que darle.
Yes, you see? What a thrill, what a
Espectacular.
rush. That was you. The button described you. Do it again, do it again. Jim. It hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Volvemos para atrás, entonces, ¿no? Espera.
Whoa there, cowboy. Sometimes a person can be too much Jim. I'm putting the Jim button away. Otherwise, soon you'll start to lose all sense of who you actually are.
Me salgo si luego me lo vas a quitar, ¿eh? Bueno, en la sala gym ha estado bien. ¿Qué más? Enjoy
I
the new
suppose I could
features.
allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That
Yeah.
would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
No screenshots. Red is the new orange. Vale, no os preocupéis que no va a haber spoilers. El problema es que lo estoy haciendo en directo esto. Pero ¿sabéis qué? No hay nadie, con lo cual cero problema también. Epílogo.
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley?
Estaría bien.
Yes, it would go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
Infinite Hole. Coleccionables, hostia, eso sí, lo necesitan todos los juegos, los coleccionables. As mundial de la configuración, agujero infinito, trofeo gratis, hombre. Free, new, más easy, trophy, vale. Vamos, Stanley. Vale, vamos a conseguirlo. Pull the lever, receive your new trophy, no more steps, it just work. Joder, qué guay.
Now, here's something special. You remember that broken test trophy that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the trophy. Yes. You see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the trophy will be given to you. It's as simple as that.
A ver.
Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the trophy is still fully broken.
Hijos de
I'm not
puta.
a wizard, Stanley.
Esto no
But
se
I
hace,
guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Ay. Verás. Tengo paciencia. Ya caerá. No, ¿verdad? Nada, ¿verdad? Esto ha estado feo, ¿eh? Esto ha estado feo. ¿Esto?
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Se me queda mucho. Mira, 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 otra vez este.
You know what? Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well.
Me parece bien.
Oh, wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump circle?
Sí.
Oh,
Dame más.
well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
Dame algún salto. Coleccionables. A ver. Agujero infinito. Vamos a los coleccionables. Oh.
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a
Eso
real
es.
video game. In the
Eso
Stanley
es.
Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them.
Muy bien,
I
innovando,
don't want
joder.
to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
Bien pensado. No puedo hacer nada ahora mismo. No puedo hacer algo. Si no, esto se va haciendo más grande, sí. Fíjate. Todos intentando cogerlo, ¿eh? Espectacular. Ay.
God, it really is the worst when you collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it.
Es trágico,
Absolutely
totalmente.
tragic.
Vamos al agujero infinito. Mira, te explica la ciencia del agujero.
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game. This is in fact a hole that you can fall down forever. That's right.
Suena guay, ¿eh?
Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A
Sí.
stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Pues vamos, ¿no? ¿Saltamos o qué?
You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so.
Está
Now
guay.
then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward.
No.
Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the top.
Porque
Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later spectrum of things.
no es infinito, ¿verdad? Me voy a matar, ¿no?
Okay, Stanley. I don't know quite how to say this tactfully,
ver.
but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole.
Vamos a ver hasta
I don't
dónde
want
llega.
anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is. Is it infinite? Well, that sort of depends on your definition of infinity. From one perspective, the infinite is merely philosophical in nature. It's more of a... Okay, well, good for you. You found the bottom of the hole. You found me out, Stanley. I'm a liar and a cheat, and you're so clever.
Poco así.
Look, I think the issue here is just that you're unusually fascinated by falling. What normal person actually wants to fall infinitely? I figured the hole was as deep as anyone would actually need. Don't you put this on me. Maybe you're the problem.
No mientas, entonces, y no te enfades. A mí no me gritas.
Things got a little heated there. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Why don't we just put all this behind us and agree to just call the hole mostly infinite? If that works for you, then go ahead and press the teleport button to warp up to the top of the hole and we can move on. I'll just be up here when you're ready.
No estoy ready. ¿Puedo hacer algo más aquí abajo?
Great. Now, I'm very excited to show you even more of my ideas for the sequel. Oh, for heaven... You see, I was right. The problem is you. The problem is that you like holes too much. Not normal. A normal person would have said, yep, that's an infinite hole right there. Goes on forever till the end of time. Don't need to see it all, but not you. Oh, no, 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 no. You have a weird sort of... Oh. Did the hole seem even
Sí,
shorter to you this
claro
time?
que sí.
I couldn't help but feel like you spent a little less time in there than you did before. I mean, admittedly, I didn't make an infinite hole, but I didn't think it was that not infinite. Well, I suppose once again there's nothing to do here. If you decide you've had enough of the hole, you can hit the teleport button and come join
Es
me
que
up
me ha
above.
gustado tirarme, sí, te digo la verdad.
Had enough? I'm positively thrilled. Gosh, how could I have guessed? You're back in the hole. If this starts to become a thing where... Wow. Okay. Yes. I'm starting to become extremely certain that the hole is not only not infinite, but that
Sí.
it's growing steadily less and less infinite. I
Sí.
suspect that I'm starting to hit the point where it's no longer feasible to call the hole infinitely deep,
No.
even by the lax overall standards for accountability and marketing. What's going on here? Stanley, I have no explanation for the uncertain nature of the hole's length. Here, let's try something. Let's pop back up to the top, and we'll see if it gets any shorter.
Hombre,
Well, there
pensaba
it
hacerlo
is.
igual.
The shame of my life. How is this still appealing to you? I know you're obsessed with holes, but at this depth, I just can't see this scratching the itch.
Sí.
Oh, who am I to judge? You just do whatever it is you're here to do and hit the teleport button when you're ready to move on.
Ya estoy.
Is the, teleport button not working?
No, no funciona.
You sure? Well, I mean,
¿Seguro?
I really don't have an explanation. It was working just a moment
Funcionó hasta
ago.
recién.
Try it
Hostia.
again.
Ya le he dado. Lo estoy dando.
Still nothing? Well, I suppose there is one thing I can do to fix this. I'm out. Goodbye, Stanley. You couldn't bear to be away from the hole, and now you'll get more time with it than you could ever have asked for.
Dame un
It's a
botón de salto.
win for everyone. You get to be with the hole, I get to do literally anything else. Take care, Stanley. I hope
Adiós.
you and the hole have a wonderful rest of eternity together.
¿Qué? ¿Qué hago? Adiós. Como tengo que bajar hasta abajo del todo así, me pego un tiro, ¿eh? Hostia. Oh, Dios. Cambia tu realidad. Me gusta... Uf, hasta que lleguemos. Me gusta la roja, tío. Está mala, Cambia tu ser. Quiero ser... Este me gusta.
Stanley? Stanley?
Estoy bien.
Stanley!
Oh,
Oh, good,
perdón.
you're awake. It seems you had sort of dozed off there, drifting away into dreamland. But we can't have that, Stanley. Because
dame un
this
botón de
hole is
salto.
just so darn fascinating that I want you to be wide awake for every second of it. You don't want to miss a single moment. So how about if I just pop in from time to time and wake you up to keep you really, truly focused on the hole? From the looks of things, you and I will have many, many years here in this hole. And I'm looking
Suena guay.
forward to all of them. Stay alert, Stanley. I'll be back. Toodle-pip.
Churupip. What?
Here we are. Go on. Try out some of the new features.
Qué raro, ¿no? Que me hayan reiniciado ahí. balde tranquilizador. Vamos a ver por aquí. Aquí.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical,
Sí, eso es
that it
verdad.
engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see, Stanley, anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind.
Eso mola.
It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley Parable will feel perfectly normal and perhaps even comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes,
Pain in the ass.
the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try.
A ver.
Can you feel it? The
Claro.
glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair, must already be sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person.
Gracias, hombre.
The benefits of the bucket seem to go on and on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
¿Qué hago con el puto cubo? Pues
Does
me lo
anyone
llevo,
give
¿no?
out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
Botón, balde, decoraciones de la oficina.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm
Blancos.
undecided on Get Well Someday and Happy 12th Birthday. Which would you go with? You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along.
Eso es bueno.
Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is.
Gracias por preguntar. Quiero tirar el cubo a la mierda.
Or actually, maybe I should have gone with... No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Elegido yo, ¿eh? ¿Qué me queda? El botón. Agujero casi infinito. Epílogo. Visto. Setting World Champion. Eso no sé dónde es. Salida. Podemos irnos ya, ¿no? Me llevo el cubo además, es un buen souvenir. Está guapo el Stanley Parable 2, ¿eh? Sí, señor.
All right, have you seen everything you wanted to?
Claro.
Ready to move on now?
Siempre. Parece CR7, ¿no? Un poco.
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new features?
Unas
I
más
know
que
it's not
otras.
exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. it's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there somewhere. Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together, and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience.
Voy a ser beta tester.
Okay. Are you ready?
Siempre.
Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2.
Fuá. Pinta acá,
Well, I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it. Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work?
Muy bien,
it could, but it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Sí, hombre, sí. Está bastante bien esto, claro.
This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Voy a omitirlo.
Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Vale, pues empezamos The Stanley Parable 2.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a trace of his co-workers.
Estoy buscando el ordenador que espera un input.
Stanley felt the bucket calling to him, begging him to pick it up. Why was he not doing it? When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Wow, yes, This room. What a beautiful room. What a gorgeous, gorgeous room.
Seguimos,
Thank
perdón,
goodness,
perdón,
eager
perdón.
to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Venga, va.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track. But Stanley didn't want to go back to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here, it's, left.
¿Seguro?
Oh, no.
Ah.
No, it's to the right, my mistake.
Me vas a trolear otra vez.
No, not the right. Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh, dear, would you hold on for a minute, please? Now, let's see. We went down right, left, down, left, right. Yep, okay, yes. I've got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
Vale. Esto me suena mucho.
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. Quick, Stanley, close your eyes.
Boy, sí.
Okay. We just have to get back to, oh, who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. The whole story completely unusable. How about, rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay, from the top.
Venga. ¿Y los
All of
globos?
his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Voy a hacer...
When Stanley... Wait, what?
Ya, eso digo yo.
No, I restarted. I swear, I definitely restarted the game over, completely fresh. Everything should be... Oh, did something change? Stanley,
Algo así.
did you change anything when we were back in that room?
Ir
with all the
apagando todo.
monitors? Did you move the story somewhere, or... Hold on. Why am I asking you? I'm the one who wrote the story. It was right here just a minute ago. I know for sure that it's here somewhere. Okay, then. It's an adventure. Come, Stanley. Let's find the story.
Por ejemplo, no llega nada.
I'll say it. This is the worst adventure I've ever been on. I can promise
Bueno,
you there
las he
definitely
jugado peores.
was a story here before. Do we need to restart the game again? Well, I find it unlikely that we'll ever progress by starting over and over again.
Yeah.
But it's got to be better than this. Okay, let's give it a shot. Why not?
Venga. ¿Estamos? Vamos a ver.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Pues no tiene buena pinta tampoco esta,
Okay, yep, it's worse.
Sí.
I might be remembering this wrong. It's possible the story is back where we just came from. Why don't we go back the other direction and see if we missed anything?
Abre. Gracias. ¿Qué? ¿Aquí? ¿Sigo?
Aha! I knew we'd miss something. The story. Here it comes. No, wait. Never mind. Not the story. Okay, let's head back the other way and retrace our steps.
Quiero subir ahí. No es nada por lo que veo, es una puta lámpara sin luz, vaya. Vale. Y ahora estamos en el Resident
Now
Evil.
this... Well, I'll be honest, I don't recognize this place at all. Is this the story?
No sé, tú mandas.
I can't quite recall, but I believe my story took place in an office building. Is that correct? Do you remember, Stanley?
Sí.
Well, do you know what? Since I've completely forgotten what we were supposed to be doing, how about this? You win! Congratulations!
Créditos. Venga.
I know you put in a lot of hard work, and it really paid off. So, good job.
Gracias, hombre.
Oh, no. No, I don't feel right about this at all. We both know you didn't put in any actual work for that win. Some people win fair and square, and this was not one of those situations. Okay, I'm getting weirded out by whatever this place is. I don't care what might happen this time. I have to restart.
Vale.
All right, I've got a solution. This time, to make sure we don't get lost, I've employed the help of the Stanley Parable adventure line. Just follow the line. How simple is that?
Es que no quiero. Quiero hacerme el solitario. Es que no quiero seguir la línea.
No, I'm down. We're living it up to the line from now on.
Vale, bueno. Sigo la línea entonces. Perdona.
You see? The line knows where the story is. It's over in this direction. Onward, Stanley, to destiny. Though, here's a thought. Wouldn't wherever we end up be our destination, even if there's no story there? Or to put it another way, is the story of no destination still a story?
Sí,
Simply
claro.
by the act of moving
El
forward,
camino
are
es
we implying
importante.
a journey such that a destination is inevitably conjured into being via the very manifestation of the nature of life itself? Okay, Stanley, I need to follow this train of thought for a minute. Just stick with me. Now, we can both agree that the nature of existence is in fact a byproduct of one's subjective experience of that existence, right? Okay,
Uy,
now
me he
if
perdido,
my experience of your existence rests inside of your subjective experience of this office, is this office in fact the skeleton of my own relative experiential mental subjective construct? Whoa. Hang on. That got a bit weird back there.
Poco,
Well,
sí.
I'd like to apologize. Not sure where I was going with all that. You know what? I think what we need right now is a bit of music to lighten the mood.
Vale. ¿Esta es la adecuada, tú crees?
Cut the music.
Gracias.
Go back and look at that fern. Stanley, this fern will be very important later
Vale.
in the story. Make sure you study it closely and
Ya
remember it
está.
carefully. You won't want to miss anything.
Pantallazo.
Wait, what? We're back at the office? No. Line, you do know we're looking for the Stanley Parable, right? The story? Is any of this ringing a bell?
Reinicia. Vale, esto es camino nuevo.
Oh, no.
Otra vez en el final.
Again, Line, how could you have done this to us? And after we trusted you, after everything we've been through, you... Oh, I can't take this anymore. To hell with it. Restart.
¿Qué hago?
You know what, Stanley? I say forget the adventure line. What's it ever done for us? We're intelligent people, right? Why can't we make up our own story? Something exciting, daring, mysterious. Ooh, this all sounds perfectly doable. Why don't we simply start wandering in, well, I don't know. How about this direction?
Adecuado, supongo.
Now, yes, this is exciting. Just me and Stanley forging a new path, a new story. Well, it could be anything. What do you want our story to be? Go
Estamos
wild.
dando
Use your imagination.
vueltas.
Whatever it might be, Stanley, I'm ready for it. Oh, no, not you again. Stanley, I'd also like to veto the line from having any role in our awesome new story. No lines or monitor rooms. Just don't acknowledge it, and we should be fine.
Es que solo hay un camino.
Ah, a choice. We
Bien.
get to make a decision. From here, the story is in our control.
Qué
How
suerte.
important we mustn't squander the opportunity. In fact, I believe I need a minute to think here. Just walk in circles for a minute. Okay, so I know that each door has to lead somewhere, which means that somewhere, the place where we're trying to go, there must be a reverse door that leads here. And that in turn means that our destination corresponds with the counter-inverted reverse door's origin. So starting from the right, let us ask, will taking the right door lead us to where we're going? And since the answer is clearly yes, then by all accounts, the door on the right is the correct one. Another victory for logic. Come, Stanley, our destiny awaits. Oh, hold up, what's this? The confusion ending. You're telling me that's what this is? It's all one giant ending? And we're supposed to restart the game, what, eight times? That's really how all this goes? It's all determined? So now, according to the schedule, I restart again. Then what? Am I just supposed to forget? Well, what if I don't want to forget? My mind goes blank simply because it's written here on this thing, wall. Well, who consulted me? Why don't I get to decide? Why don't I get a say in all of this? Is it really? No, it can't be. I don't want it to be. I don't want the game to keep restarting. I don't want to forget what's going on. I don't want to be trapped like this. I won't restart the game. I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't do it.
Veremos.
And the timer stopped? Does that mean, did we do it? Did we break the cycle? The, whatever it is that made this schedule? How would we even know? Will someone come for us? Will something happen? So, okay. I guess now we just wait. You know, I suppose in some way that this is a kind of story. Wouldn't you agree? I'm not quite sure if we're in the destination or the journey. Though they're always saying that life is about the journey and not the destination. So I hope that's where we are right now. We'll find out, won't we? eventually. Well, in the meantime, if you...
Hostia puta, qué susto. ¿Han vuelto los globos?
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room, and from then on, he would never be alone ever again. Maybe Stanley would never pick up the bucket. A lonely bucket, lonely and miserable and Stanley-less. Such a sad... Stanley picked up the bucket.
Venga.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Vamos a hacer caso.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where
Vamos a
he'd find
intentar seguir la
answers.
historia.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. You found one of them. One of the miniature
Vámonos.
Stanley figurines. Remember, no reward for collecting all of these.
Ya veremos.
Only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley. God knows I've tried. So, I implore you to savor each and every moment you come across one of these beautiful figurines.
Vale. Dios. Business strategy. Pero...
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk.
Sí, hombre.
Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the PIN number for the keypad was 2845.
2845.
But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Otro ascensor.
The elevator raced downward, plummeting towards an unknown fate. It would be all Stanley could do to keep himself together, if not for the bucket. Soothing him, comforting him, reassuring that in this darkest moment of uncertainty, he would be all right. The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through
Vale.
a large door that read, Mind Control Facility.
Vámonos.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death.
Veremos.
The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley and the bucket were knowingly walking forward into a very painful death for each of them.
¡Yujú! Vámonos, el tren de la bruja. No.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
"Farewell, Stanley," cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end, as it was crushed violently to death.
Vale.
It was a shame, the death of such a magnificent bucket. It's true that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to behold.
Gran exposición. Te encuentras ante el precipicio del conocimiento. Al igual que un balde, la mente humana suele estar vacía como una caverna. Pero, gracias a la exposición que tienes enfrente, la mente se llena, se enriquece, se exalta. El conocimiento del balde y su historia es el único conocimiento que tenemos de verdad. Llevarás contigo al mundo lo que aprendas aquí, aceptarás con mente abierta la información de esta muestra que podría desafiar tu modo de ver el universo, cambiarás tu vida y la de tus seres queridos como consecuencia de esta exposición, o harás la vista gorda y seguirás viviendo como hasta ahora entre la oscuridad y la ignorancia. Vamos a ver qué me ofrecéis. Un buen balde te cambia la vida, ¿eh?
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the
Me han
hubris
dicho
that blinded
que lo
him?
cogiera,
Can you
coño.
see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his short life?
25 baldes. Alguno más hay. Fotografía de 25. Alguno más hay. La mayor cantidad que se haya capturado en una cámara. El fotógrafo estuvo en shock, catatónico durante varias semanas como consecuencia de la euforia que le provocó exponerse a tantos baldes al mismo tiempo. Espectacular. Juro por Dios que el MoMA no es muy distinto a esto. Un balde con dos asas. Imagen de un balde con dos asas. Tal diseño no se ha creado jamás en la vida real. Por algo será. Pues se considera demasiado peligroso e imprudentemente experimental. Todos los años se condena a muerte a decenas de personas por intentarlo. Guapísimo. Balde infernal. Réplica del balde infernal. El medioevo. Ojo. Este objeto resultaba tan fascinante que desató guerras entre numerosas naciones que pugnaban por su control. Miles de millones murieron, pero la realidad no cambió. Nadie puede controlar un balde. Fua. El balde antiestrés, presentado sin comentarios. Vale. Esto es así. O sea, tapuerca. 100% así. Esto me recuerda, esta música me recuerda al Hellblade 2, al tráiler. Arte rupestre. Si bien sabemos que los baldes son anteriores a la aparición del ser humano, no tenemos idea de cuánto tiempo antes surgieron. En esta ilustración rupestre, esta, Se ve cómo nuestros ancestros descubrieron los usos prácticos del balde. Para entonces es probable que los baldes llevaran varios milenios en el planeta. Observa cómo el balde permite que lo utilicen tras haber determinado que la humanidad es digna de sus tesoros. Fantástico.
No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this
Pero
one.
me lo tenéis que haber
It
dicho
is
antes.
man who should kneel before the bucket.
Ahora nos tiramos. El balde colgante. Esta obra simboliza la relación necesaria entre el balde y la humanidad. Por clara que parezca nuestra comprensión del balde, hay algo que siempre estará fuera del alcance. Inevitablemente, esta distancia existe por nuestro bien. Let's go. Pensé que caería, la verdad.
But there is something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong.
Cuéntame lo que haga falta.
Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to run off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take its place as ruler, as leader, as commander of a new world, a new vision.
Pero el balde se muere también así, señora. Hola. Vale. Empezamos de nuevo. Normal, pero sin narrador.
Stanley lifted the bucket into his arms, and a wave of comfort rushed over him. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Vale. Tras de que sí. Que sí, que voy a buscarlos todos.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of jealousy? It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet. That's what the broom closet is trying to say here. It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it
¿Podría
must be,
hacerlo?
given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your... Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his
Otra vez lo del
post during
sueño,
work
no.
hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then, something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from this. Who knows what sorts of bizarre hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me! The
Madre mía, vaya porros.
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley. Find me.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out. This is the story of a woman named Mariella.
¿Otra vez Mariela?
Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort
con
and
balde.
security,
Mariela con balde.
and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten.
Ya podían
his
llamarlo
bucket at
cubo,
home in
¿eh?
the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Backflips. Vale. Vale. Me gustaría conseguir, al menos hoy, uno de los finales, la verdad.
Stanley knew the office layout like the back of his hand. It was only a matter of time before he found the others, wherever they were. Just a matter of time. The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Los acaban encontrando.
Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
Aquí he encontrado uno de los coleccionables. ¿Sí?
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection he shared with the bucket that he didn't notice the keypad behind the boss's desk. Nor in his bliss of simply being near the bucket did he have any notion that the pin number for the keypad was 2845. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Vale, pero aquí voy a acabar donde me aplastan otra vez, ¿no? Tengo opción de evitar ese camino.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read, Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves. The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly dropped the bucket in shock. Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The
Guinea
bucket
pigs.
had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter, his one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system. Stanley and the bucket waited in blackness. Was it over?
Uno de los finales puede ser este.
Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their greatest and darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this massive door. The bucket wanted to learn to roller skate. Stanley wanted to sneeze in every country on Earth. Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support.
Vaya hombre.
What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket. Oh go to any lengths not to part with the bucket.
Puedo hacer esto mismo sin el balde.
Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it. Stanley realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself.
No,
as long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Vale, mismo recorrido, pero sin coger el cubo, ¿vale? Adiós, balde.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was... Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible, he didn't even have a single minute to just let the narrator talk. That kind of anxiety isn't healthy.
Yeah.
So he relaxed for a few moments with some calming New Age music.
Perdón. Perdón, me lo sabía y lo he puesto. No pasa nada.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
¿Será este el camino? Narrador, es que es la 1:00 y tío, y yo me quiero ir a dormir.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility. The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing. This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in, Stanley decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible power over another human life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
¿Cómo?
And when at last he found the source of the room's power, he knew it was his duty, his obligation, to put an end to this horrible
Vamos
place
con ello.
and to everything it stood for.
Y no llevo el cubo, con lo cual debería poder salir, ¿no? Y ver el primer final.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Vale. Fin. Trofeo de terminar el juego, con lo cual ese es el primer final. 1:30. Y 2 horas y cuarto de directo. Lo voy a dejar aquí, pero tenemos que hacer los demás finales. Así que gracias por pasarse. Los que no os hayáis pasado lo habéis perdido. Y recordad que si parece fácil es porque soy muy bueno. Adiós.